Let's go over diets that actually work. If you want to lose some weight, let's find a diet right now that you can start tomorrow. It's going to help you lose weight and like permanently keep it off. I recently had a personal training client come to my gym a couple days ago, and she was on more of that like low fat, high carbohydrate type diet. You know, she always did well with it, lost some weight, but in the last 4 or 5 years, she started gaining weight. I started talking to her. I said, you know, that diet can work for you. I actually was on that diet when I was in my 20s, 30s. When I hit around 40, 45, I switched over to the opposite diet, which I'll talk about later in the video. But I was looking at her diet and I realized the reason why that diet stopped working for her is because she wasn't eating enough protein. See, I think that's the key factor to whatever diet you decide to go on. You have to eat an adequate amount of protein, if not a high amount of protein, if you want a diet to be successful. Whether you're doing like a high carbohydrate, low fat diet, you need a good amount of protein. And if you're doing the diet that I'm on now, which I love, which is a high fat, low carb type diet, as long as you keep your protein up on both of those diets, they can work for you. But if you're not eating enough protein, you're gonna have a hard time like the woman that just came to my gym. And this is why she was having such a hard time. First of all, she never felt satisfied from the food she was eating. She was eating a lot of pasta, she was eating rice, she was eating a lot of vegetables too, which is really good for you, but her satiety was low. Like she never felt satisfied. She wasn't sitting down and having like an 8-ounce piece of salmon. Like she recently told me she had like a big salad and she had quinoa in the salad and she was telling me about it thinking that I would think that's a really healthy, great thing. I think it's relatively healthy, but it's still a relatively low protein meal. See, protein out of all the macronutrients, your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, has the highest thermic effect. See, the thermic effect kind of like boosts your metabolism. When you sit down and you eat, say, an 8-ounce steak, let's say this steak is 300 calories, you're gonna burn up 25 to 30% of those calories just digesting and processing that steak. So the net calories of a 300 calorie steak is only going to be about 200 calories, plus proteins for 300 calories in an 8-ounce steak. The vitamins and minerals and nutrients you're getting is just through the roof. There's nothing better, in my opinion, you can eat for good nutrition than eating protein. And then if your nutrition is low, if you're malnourished, you're going to be hungry right there. You're not going to feel right. So the key to eating, in my opinion, a low, like fat, high carb diet, if you want it to work for you, you have to make sure you're eating an adequate amount of protein. And my formula is I like a minimum of 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. So let's say you're 150 pounds, you got about 20% body fat. You want to eat, I think the exact number is 117 grams of protein, but you want, 110, 120 grams of protein minimal. If you don't want to do that calculation, you want to keep it really simple. Just take your body weight and times it by 0.9. So if you're 150 pounds, maybe like 140 grams of protein. I'm telling you, it's going to help you lose weight. It's going to be good for your health. Plus, you're going to feel so satisfied. When you eat protein, you feel full. You're going to feel amazing from it. So if you want to go, low fat, make sure you're getting enough protein. But my favorite diet is more of that higher fat, low carbohydrate type diet. And I'll tell you why. When I was into bodybuilding, my 20s, 30s, and even like early 40s, I was eating more of the diet I just described. I was eating a high carb diet. I was keeping my fat low because I didn't want to overdo the calories, but I always did eat a high amount of protein and I actually looked good. My body fat was low, but I have to say, because I was eating so many carbohydrates, when you eat carbohydrates, out of all the macronutrients, that's going to spike your blood sugar, spike insulin the most. So I was always like spiking blood sugar. My pancreas was produce insulin to lower my blood sugar. I get hungry again, but I had the mindset I wanted to get big and muscular. So I was always hungry, when I was eating high carb, but I was burning up the carbohydrates. And then when it came to my blood work, when I looked at my cholesterol was always good within like normal levels when I was eating high carb, but nowhere near as good as it now. Like my triglycerides were around 100. Now that I'm eating a low carb diet, my triglycerides are like in the low 40s. My HDLs, my high density level proteins, my good cholesterol was only in the 50s when I was eating high carb. Now when I'm eating low carb, I'm in the high 60s. So I think a low carb diet, just because it keeps insulin levels low, is a healthier diet. I definitely think it is. But the key to getting both these diets to work for you is that you have to eat an adequate amount of protein. That's why I'm not crazy about, say, a strict ketogenic diet long term, because in my opinion, it's really low in protein. Like a ketogenic diet is when you go like 85% fat, you keep your protein low because protein can spike insulin and knock you out of ketosis, and you go very low carbohydrate. I think it's a good diet to do temporarily or intermittently if you just want to pop into ketosis for a few weeks and then come out of it. But long term, I think you need more protein. Maybe a modified ketogenic diet, which is kind of a little bit what I do. I like to keep my carbohydrates around 50 to 100 grams a day, relatively low carb. I do pop in and out of ketosis. I keep my protein high, maybe 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then I try to eat, I don't really track my fat. I try to get my fat calories just from the whole natural foods I'm eating. Like I eat a lot of avocados, I eat a lot of eggs, I eat a lot of animal protein, which has a reasonable amount of fat in it. And I do put olive oil, on my vegetables and on my salad. So those are two totally different diets that you can go on. And they both can work for you as long as you keep eating enough protein. But I want to talk about one diet that is not going to work for anyone. And this is more that traditional American diet. So you can't mix, even if you're eating enough protein. If you decide you're going to start eating like high amounts of fat and carbohydrates together within the same meal, that's never going to work, because those are the type of foods, those are like the processed type of foods, like the cookies, the cakes, the potato chips, all the different types of chips. Those are the type of foods that are very unsatisfying. They're trigger foods. Like food manufacturers spend millions of dollars designing foods that are high in fat, that are high in carbohydrates, that taste great, that don't really fill you up. Like a bag of potato chips, you can eat the whole bag, you want a second bag, right? You have a sleeve of Oreo cookies, you want another sleeve of Oreo cookies an hour later. These foods are designed to make you want to eat them, and you just can't stop eating them. So you can't eat high fat and high carbs together, even if you're eating an adequate amount of protein. So you really have two options, in my opinion, for diets that work. One is a low fat, relatively high carbohydrate diet with an adequate amount of protein. You can go that route if you want, or you can go with my favorite diet, which is a low carb, right, higher fat, adequate amount of protein diet. And you can never mix high amounts of fat and carbs together with all your meals and all your snacks, or else you're never going to lose any weight. So you got a couple of choices of diets that really can work for you. Now, if you want to learn more, let's say you want a specific diet to follow where I tell you all the meal plans. I'm also a big believer in intermittent fasting. About a year ago, I put one of my personal training clients on this 4-week diet program where I mapped out all his meals for him. He did incredibly well. It's a 4-week program. I made a whole video about it. Check out the video. I think you're going to find the video really helpful.